make massive moves.
Picture perfect, you don't need no filter.
Another one.
Jerusalem, ikayalami.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
And it is a Tuesday, the 12th of January, and this is the Morning Express right here on Starsat, channel 500, and also on Facebook. We are Galaxy Universal Network, live in Johannesburg from our Midrand studios. Good morning, South Africa and everyone on the African continent. I am Harmony Mbele, and on that note, let us take a look at our 1 hour rundown of today's headlines and news. Taking a look at President Cyril Ramaphosa extends lockdown, alcohol ban stands. And also EFF Dlozi lays charges against Minister Mbele. And Gauteng COVID-19 infections and hospital admissions double up within the country. And Minister Jackson Mthembu tests positive for COVID-19. And those are the stories that we are bringing for you today, rather right here on the Morning Express. Interact with us on our various social media platforms. On Twitter, we are gun_TV_. Make sure that you are interacting, really conversing with us so that we really get to understand all things that are happening within our country. Do you understand what the continuation of the lockdown level 3 means and the extended sentiments by the president in terms of the variant, the vaccine that is also going to be made available. But here's a breakdown on the speech, the media briefing that was given out by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And President Cyril Ramaphosa has rather announced the extension of South Africa's adjusted level 3 lockdown with some changes to the current restrictions. In a media briefing on Monday evening, the 11th of January, the president said that the pandemic in South Africa is now at its most devastating, with the numbers of new cases, deaths and hospital admissions now at the highest point since the coronavirus was first detected in the country in March 2020. More than 1.1 million cases have been reported in the country to date, with over 33,000 deaths. And since the start of the new year, 190,000 new cases have been reported, alongside 4,600 deaths, and more than 15,000 South Africans are currently in hospital, with approximately a third of these patients on oxygen support.
Cabinet has decided to maintain the country on adjusted level 3. Most of the measures that were announced on the 28th of December 2020 will remain in place. Given the risk of widespread transmission, most indoor and outdoor gatherings will not be permitted. This includes social gatherings, religious gatherings, political events, traditional council meetings and gatherings at sports grounds. As before, this does not include funerals and other limited exceptions as detailed in the regulations, such as going to restaurants, museums, and gyms. Funerals may not be attended by more than 50 people, and there needs to be social distancing, hand washing, and mask wearing at funerals. The hours of curfew will now start at 9 p.m. and end earlier at 5 a.m. It remains compulsory for all of us, every person in our country, to wear a mask in a public space. The sale of alcohol from retail outlets and the on-site consumption of alcohol is still not permitted. All beaches, dams, lakes, rivers, public parks, lagoons, and public swimming pools in hotspot areas will be closed to the public. As before, botanical gardens, national parks, and other parks where access control measures and entry limitations are already in place may remain open to the public. To reduce congestion and the high risk of transmission, Cabinet has decided that the 20 land ports of entry that are currently open will be closed until the 15th of February for general entry and departure. These include the 6 busiest border ports.
And President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the infections in Gauteng are growing rapidly, with this number set to rise as more holiday makers return home from the coastal areas. And the surge in increases is due to the new COVID-19 variant in the country, which means that many more people have become infected in a shorter space of time. And citing early research, he said that this variant is not only more dangerous, but places severe strain on hospitals as cases surge rapidly. And further, Ramaphosa also revealed that the sale of alcohol from retail outlets and side consumption of alcohol is still not permitted under the Level 3 lockdown.
The sale of alcohol from retail outlets and their on-site consumption of alcohol is still not permitted. Health services in several parts of the country reported that the prohibition of alcohol sales had significantly reduced the number of trauma cases seen in our hospitals over the New Year period. I must mention this one. Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital sent out a post on their Facebook showing a photograph of their trauma ward on New Year's Eve. That trauma ward was empty for the very first time since Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital was established. This goes to show and to prove that alcohol does result in behavior that causes trauma. It is vital that we continue to protect our health services at this crucial time. All beaches, dams, lakes, rivers, public parks, lagoons, and public swimming pools in hotspot areas will be closed to the public. As before, botanical gardens, national parks, and other parks where access control measures and entry limitations are already in place may remain open to the public. One of the challenges that we have as the festive season draws to a close is the huge congestion at many of our land.
And additionally, Ramaphosa said that government has already secured 20 million doses of the vaccine for the current year being 2020, making sure that most South Africans can also get the vaccine in due time, also prioritizing the healthcare workers and frontline workers that are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic at first hand.
We will receive vaccine doses for around 10% of our population through the COVAX facility. As the chair of the African Union, we initiated the establishment of an African vaccine acquisition task team. Having developed a clear strategy on vaccines, we realized that what we now needed was to go and acquire the vaccines. These will be purchased in bulk, and African countries will be able to order vaccine doses from the pool that we've created at the African Union level. It is estimated that Africa as a whole will need 1.5 billion doses to immunize the target of 60% of the population of our continent. Through intensive engagement with vaccine manufacturers and developers, the task team has done tremendous work to secure vaccine doses for countries on the continent. As I said before, our own Minister of Health, Dr. Zwelini Mkhize, serves on this task team that we established. The South African government has also been engaging directly with several vaccine manufacturers for the past 6 months. Given the massive global demand for vaccines and the vastly greater purchasing power of wealthier countries, we're exploring all avenues to get as many vaccine doses as soon as possible for South Africans. While there are several promising negotiations with a number of different manufacturers that still need to be concluded, we have to date secured 20 million doses to be delivered mainly in the course of the year and substantial amount of it in the first half of the year. We will make further announcement as we conclude our negotiations with these vaccine developers and manufacturers.
And the EFF's Mbuyiseni Dlozi has officially filed criminal charges against Mbhele after he accused the police minister for defeating the ends of justice by interfering with an ongoing investigation. And the party commissar went one step further on Monday, alleging that Mbhele of possibly being involved in PPE tender fraud himself. And Dlozi claims that Mbhele tried to halt the suspension of Lieutenant General Peter Jacobs' investigation into the fraudulent acquisition of PPE crime intelligence. And speaking outside the police station, Dlozi said that there was a huge initiative by different people of different ties of state to take advantage of the urgency that was required to secure personal protective equipment within our country.
We've gotten an assurance from the police here that the matter will be prioritized, but we're not going to leave it there. We'll also have taken initiative that we're going to report him to the public protector, because what he did is a perfect classic case of the ways in which at different levels many politicians undermine investigations into corruption. So we have opened a case.
Sorry, we're running out of time. One of the points that the minister is citing why he had to do this was that he believes that the Inspector General had to conclude his report before any decision is taken. Hence, he said the suspension needs to be halted. Is that not a good point?
No, it's not a good point. It's irrelevant. The National Police Commissioner was very clear that his basis for the suspension is that he believes that the allegations are substantial. And once that's the only consideration. Are these allegations substantial? That's all we need to find out. If they're substantial, you proceed. So he was interfering, and we have a reason to believe, that taking the history of Mbhele in relation to the SEPs themselves, that he may very well be involved in the procurement of this. I mean, he may very well be benefiting. So we want the investigation not to stop, at political interference. It must go beyond. It must even expose the links that may be there if he's involved in the very company.
And he added that the fastest growing opposition in Parliament, the EFF has an obligation to exercise the oversight on the procurement of the PPE tenders in South Africa.
Well, remember that there is a huge initiative by different people at different tiers of the state that to take advantage of the agency that was required to secure personal protective equipment, and in the process they undermined regulations in a process of trying to get rich quick. So we've got to exercise oversight. We've got an obligation as members of Parliament, as an opposition political party, to exercise oversight on this procurement of PPEs. And once allegations of corruption have been made against officials within the police or wherever in institutions of government, they've got to be investigated without any interruption, without any fear, without any favor. So in this case, the Minister of Police, this is a classic case of political interference, defeating the ends of justice, to come in the interest of protecting his friend, to face investigation. And it was a correct thing that the National Commissioner of Police did, which was to suspend Lieutenant General Jacobs so that he does not interfere with the investigation. And the Minister of Police comes in, firstly gives illegal instructions, instructing or telling the National Commissioner of Police not to suspend Lieutenant General Jacobs. That in itself was an illegal instruction, number one, but it was a political interference. Paragraph 76 of the judgment is very clear. The minister has no role in the employment-related details within the SAPS. His role is to provide policy, is to provide political direction in relation to the policy of policing in South Africa, not to get involved in the employment relations and in the employment details. Lieutenant General Jacobs reports to the National Police Commissioner, and therefore...
And over the last 7 days, confirmed COVID-19 infections and hospital admissions have doubled in Gauteng, with Tshwane emerging as the worst affected metro. And this according to Gauteng Premier David Makhura, who visited the Steve Biko Academic Hospital in Tshwane on Monday. And Makhura, who said that was exact statistics that would be provided on Tuesday at the Provincial Coronavirus Command Council media briefing, explaining that the sharp increase that was expected as people are returning to the province following the festive season that was in 2020, being December the 25th and the 31st of December, being one of the days that were really highlighted throughout December by the Minister himself of Police, Peggy, and also the President, making sure that lockdown procurement also was being followed throughout the country.
The number of fatalities has increased quite exponentially in Gauteng province. You are aware, or you may remember, that we did say that after people return from the festive season, we foresee that there are going to be significant increases in Gauteng province. Across the country, of course, the second wave arrived ahead of Christmas. Even here, by mid-December, there were already indications, although the numbers in our hospitals, admissions were still relatively low, and the increases in infection were moderate. Already before Christmas, ahead of Christmas, we started seeing the increase. Tshwane, with regard to the second wave, this region, this Metro Tshwane, is where we have the highest rate of daily infections as we speak. In other words, the hotspot SA region and SA Metro, it's at the center, it's where the heat is at the moment. One of the reasons when we were doing the analysis before Christmas, we had of the young people, the matriculants who attended the rave event in Durban. The largest number from Gauteng, we had over 1,300 from Gauteng who attended that event. The largest number came from Tshwane. So we already saw that Tshwane is going to be hardest hit, but we also had unfortunate events in the run-up to Christmas. Events that were a flagrant violation of the regulations. Amongst young people, we saw on the R8 was blocked. There was a...
And he said the infection rate and hospital admissions were also worsened by gatherings in the province, including parties before Christmas, where youngsters were seen dancing to music and drinking along alcohol along the R80 Maboneng Highway into the Dasport Tunnel. There was also all those videos circulating online.
And civil society is also central in that. It's something that we can do together. And I want to continue to appeal that organized communities, including the religious sector, seeing what is happening now, please work with us. Let us, those who are, funerals are still a big problem in terms of complying with the regulations of 50 people, but also not taking someone who has passed on COVID-19 must not be brought home. So we are appealing to the people of our province. Events, as according to the restrictions announced on the 29th of December, all the events that there are people who are still trying, but the law enforcement agencies have been working very hard in our province. They have stopped a lot of events that were being organized. That includes the transportation of alcohol and also activities where alcohol is being home brewed. The home brewed stuff that gets done and then gets distributed. This is really about saving more lives. The rest of the issues, I think, we await what the National Coronavirus Command Council is going to say. We are awaiting that, but our message is that in Gauteng now, we are in the eye of the storm of the second wave. Every number indicates that. People who are arriving back, let me also say here at Biko, we have also been admitting people who have South Africans and fellow citizens who have come from neighboring provinces like Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and the Northwest. And a lot of them just bring themselves here.
And furthermore, the Premier also explained the pressure hospitals had to come under during this lockdown and the pandemic also breaking out in South Africa.
Even here in Tshwane, we have more beds. We have here, Steve Biko is a complex. There is Tshwane District Hospital that is linked to Steve Biko, which was a mother and child. It has been converted into a specialized COVID hospital. It has the total number of beds in that hospital is 95. 95 is 200 bedded hospital, but 95 are for COVID. At the moment, it's not full. There's 43 patients, but we are sorting because when the COVID infections and admissions started to go down after the first wave, correctly speaking, the leadership of this complex decided because COVID patients are fewer, they must open that hospital for other patients. So they've been treating other patients there. What is the Provincial Health Department doing with the institutions? We are now going back to full 95 COVID beds. In a number of areas where we had opened up for allowing, we are going to be scaling down what other medical services and health services will be provided to prioritize, not shut down other services completely, but to prioritize COVID patients. That's a matter that the department, the MEC, is addressing this matter together with, we also have to get the unions on board because the unions are a very important partner. But we're also looking at, in many areas, we had also healthcare workers who were put on contract in preparation for the first wave, in anticipation for the model that showed that in 2021, the country would be at a certain level. You know that the discovery of the new variant is getting...
And with all things rather happening in South Africa and throughout the world, allow us to take a quick breather. I'll be back with more news, updates on all things happening in South Africa and what is happening with the Minister, Mr. Jackson Mthembu, testing positive for COVID-19. With all that, after this.
Make massive moves.
Picture perfect, you don't need no filter.
Another one.
Jerusalem, ikhaya lami.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
So from the theater stage to the kitchen.
I'm anxiously awaiting to see Sanaya.
What else is this if not love?
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
And WBC Continental America's champion. That was delightful.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
Isn't that your daughter's bib? But the truth is, I feel like Arabella's always with me.
Don't you ever forget this man's face. He killed your brother.
Don't shoot. Please don't shoot. Don't shoot.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
And welcome back from the ad break. You're still watching Morning Express with myself, Mbele. Thank you very much for staying with us. It is a half an hour into our news bulletin this morning right here on the Morning Express. And today we are really going to be tackling something that might really be an issue for most. For others, it could be really what is hitting South Africa in the pits of our economy. And also yesterday, Cyril Ramaphosa also revealed that the sale of alcohol from retail outlets and on-site consumption of alcohol is still not permitted within the country at this point, knowing that we are on level 3 of the lockdown. But how then has this affected people that own taverns, shebeens, all these big liquor places? How then have they are they making their money in terms of how they're continuing to fend for their families and how they're putting food on the table? But on the line, I get to be joined by one of the owners who owns a shebeen within the East, and I am talking about Zandile Ndimande. Good morning, Ma. Thank you very much for joining me.
Yebo, njani?
Ngiyaphila njani, Ma? Ngiyaphila. Ma, bengicela siqale ukukhuluma about what is happening within ukuthengisa kotshwala. I mean, iqale ngo-December when the new lockdown was being introduced. Ikuhlakaze kanjani, ikuphathe kanjani the fact that manje busengavumelekanga ukuthi udayise utshwala?
Yo, isihlukumeza kakhulu lento lena, kakhulukazi thina abantu abanganama license sihlukumezeke kakhulu. Manje nje njoba ukuthenga kanje kumele senge ama uniform abantwana kumele baye esikoleni sizothenga ngani because asithengisi kuvaliwe. Sihlukumezeke kakhulu kahle.
Ekuhlukumezeni kwakho, Ma, you do mention ukuthi awunayo i-license. What is the reason behind ukuthi ungakayitholi i-license namanje uloku udayisa?
Ngizamile kanengi ukuthi ngithole i-license. Labantu abanama-license abafuni ukusinikeza ama-information a-right ukuthi sithole ama-license. Akukho easy like siyafisa nathi ukuthi sibe nama-license ngoba thina esinganama-license sistoka less than 10 case. Asikhona ukustoka more than 10 case. So siyabulalela ngalapho and profit asiyitholi ngalawo makhesi amancane. Mawustoke more than lawo makhesi lawo abawashilo babafika bayaphatha amaphoyisa utshwala. So banivumela, so if awunayo i-license, you're only allowed ukuthi ustoke ama-case awu-10 owotshwala, and then if you stock more than that bayeza bazokuthathela, then wenza kanjani maseyiphela le 10 case? Do you order more or uyalinda kuze kudlula inyanga uzukwazi ukorder? Isebenza kanjani ukuthi maseyiphela le 10 case onayo manje? How then do you move forward ukuthi istoko sibuya kanjani? Mele ulinde ukuthi le 10 case leyo iphele. Then maseyiphelile awukhona uku-add more than leyo 10 case leyo.
belulinde lawo ma-case lawo aphele kuphinde uqale phansi futhi usitoke lawo ma-case because bawathola ama-case angaphezulu kwalenani abalishiye bayawathi
well
manje siyabulaleka kakhulu.
Yeah, I mean njengoba usho ukuthi niyabulaleka, then how has this then affected abantu abakusebenzelayo ngisho nawe Mbhele, within knowing ukuthi you can only occupy 10 cases if awunayo license in South Africa? How then this has affected you and abantu abakusebenzelayo?
Yasihlukumeza kakhulu manje nje mina isizo lami bengingalicela ngathi ngathola umuntu ongangisiza ukuthi ngikhona ukuthola i-license ngoba ngiyasogola kakhulu and ni-single parent uyabona yonke into ibheke mina abantwana ukudla nje kukho easy sesiyaphila nje ngaleyo ngqanqamisela ukuthi sizothini.
Well, kukhona usizo mhlawumbe oltholayo from mhlawumbe social grant, ikhona imali engenayo ngaphandle kwale oyisebenzisayo yotshwala yokudayisa?
Umntwana oyi-1 ona 16 lo kumele ngabe esikolweni yokwenza grade 11 kumele ngumthengele i-uniform kuyo yona grant nangapha yona leyo tshwala yona yikho imali engenayo ngaphandle kwaleyo.
Manje, I mean, manje at this point utshwala sebuvaliwe for the longest of time and you have not been able to sell alcohol. Does this mean uyakwazi ukutshontsha mhlawumbe sekuthiwa you can't, then how then are you making ends meet? I mean, as a South African ohlalayo at this point, knowing that the only source of income bunayo was through utshwala, and at this point bavalwa from December, literally from the entire of inception of lockdown, and bavuleleka for isikhashana esincane baphinda babuvala, and then 31 there was no one selling alcohol on the 25th of December. Kuka kanjani kona lokho, knowing that 2020 December was also the pits, and even now January kusamela umntana esikolweni for January, kuphileka kanjani eqinisweni?
Hayi Ntontanzima ngifuna ukukutshela manga Ntontanzima kakhulu ukumanje imali engiphila ngayo yile 450 ngikhiphile grant nayo seyaphela makuphela yona nje njoba kuvala utshwala angazi ukuthi ngizodlala nabantwana bami futhi sobulawa indlala.
And then what do you wish the government could do at this point? I mean, mhlambe masithi umongameli usilalele manje yini into ongayifisa ukuthi anenzele yona njengabantu abanganawo ama license? I mean, being a single parent osumntana esikolweni who's going to be in grade 11, you're operating without a license, and that already contrabands you ukuthi ungaboshwa mase bethola mhlambe noma kuthiwa ama case awu11 within your premises. Then what do you want to say to the president or to abantu abasiphethe abotshwala eMzantsi Afrika?
Mina nje into bengicela kwamanje njengoba kuvaliwe lotshwala at least abazaba ukuthi uvulela noma basivulela amalanga or basibekele isikhathi sokuthi sithengise sazi ukuthi siyadobha ke lawo masentinyana kunokuthi kuvale totally.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And ngiyakuzwa kakhulu nakulokho. So I mean, we've also been seeing Mbele enkulu reporting that there were no trauma cases being reported due to alcohol. So bathi abantu masebephuzile yibona abahlezi basebhedlela ngezikhathi eziningi. So within that, how then do you feel about the fact that it could really be prolonged and be a long time utshwala buvaliwe eMzansi because of the incidents that happened masabantu sebephuzile?
Ukhuluma uyashesha ngikho ukubamba kokunye.
So ngithi within everything that has been happening ngithi abantu ebhedlela ama reports ayaphuma ayasho ukuthi abantu abaningi within the trauma cases mhlawumbe abashayanayo abagwazanayo abadubulanayo bephuzile abekho baningi ebhedlela because utshwala buvaliwe. So when uthini ngalokho iphuzu wena olifaka kulokho ukuthi utshwala mhlawumbe kunciphise ngendlela yokudayiswa ngakhona senze kanjani ngoba kunayo imphumela iyasho ukuthi ebhedlela kulungile mase bungekho utshwala. Now futhi amanesi akwazi ukunakekela abantu abane COVID. Wena umbono wakho ngalokho uthini?
Mina nje umbono ukucela nje ukuthi isikhathi yabona mangale isikhathi siqaliwe ukuthi isikhathi singakho kuzothengiswa for isikhathi singakho angiboni ukuthi bazophuza baze bafike estage sokuthi baze balimazana.
Yeah. So inkinga ukuthi
mase ubekele isikhathi kunokuthi kuvulele utshalo ngaso sonke isikhathi ku10 lapho ke abantu baphuza ukuverdose ukuthi bese sebayenza nezinto ezibro.
Yeah, but I mean masesibheka futhi nezikhathi zodwa utshwala on a normal basis it's 6 till 2 a.m. in the morning. So kuthiwa ngo2 a.m. ama tavern restaurants zonke indawo ziyavala. So let's say would it be possible ukuthi sithi 2 till 10 p.m. ziyavalwa zonke indawo, 2 till 9 p.m. ziyavalwa indawo so that abantu bakwazi ukuya emakhaya bangaze bagwazane balimazane. So that would that be an ideal circumstance for abantu abadayisa utshwala eMzansi ngalesikhathi?
Like angikuzwa kahle yazi angikuzwa kahle kodwa ngathi ngiyakubamba kancane ngithi mina the way ngicela ngakhona fisa ngazuthi government angasenzela ukuthi like mhlambe asibekela amalanga
yeah
qala buzothengiswa ngamalanga so ke nesikhathi esiso buyavalwa like kuba ngcono kanjalo
akunankinga manje ngiyakuzwa kodwa kodwa sicayile simo obhekene naso knowing that usazosumntana esikolweni
kakhulu
but I think closing for me now yini wena ofuna ukuyisho kubantu ababukele manje across South Africa, even on the African continent, njengomzali who's running an illegal shebeen awuna license yona kodwa uyadayisa ukudayisa, you are following the regulations abazibekile zokuthi you only need 10 cases within your premises, you only stock mase sekuphele lokho, but uthini kubona knowing that is the only way okwazi ukuthola ngayo imali ngaphandle kwesasa for umntana lona 16 ukwenza grade 11?
Mina bengicela nje njengoba bengisho ukuthi ngicela ukuthi ugovernment asizwele bantu benkosi thina abantu singanama licenses sikhona asedele ke kulinani lela sibekele lona ukuthi sithengise, unless basizamele nokuthi sithola ama license nathi ngoba nathi siyafisa ukuthi sithuthuke kulama business nyana amancane wethu esinawo.
Ngiyakuzwa mangibonge kakhulu Zandile Ntimande for joining me right here on the Morning Express. It's really hard sentiments lezo sitshela zona namuhla like seni kodwa ngibonge kakhulu.
All right.
Well, thank you very much for joining us right here on the Morning Express. It's really hard sentiments coming from one of the women in South Africa. She's not the only one living in South Africa, really not having a license to run her own business, really selling alcohol at this point, knowing that regulations do imply that no sale of alcohol within the residence or anywhere that we are doing. So it's really going to be a hard one in South Africa, knowing that many people are really complaining, saying that it's hard, stringent regulations that have been put in place, but even on the upside, when you're looking at it, in hospitals, they are recording no trauma cases. Even on the 31st of December in 2020, we saw the numbers, seeing multiple videos and pictures online circulating that even Baragwanath did not even report a single trauma case for the first time in its history since it was opened, since it opened up its doors to South Africa. So that is a big one. But interact with us across our various social media platforms to let us know what are your thoughts on this conversation. Really, we are gun_TV_ on Twitter, and let us know what your thoughts are. And as we continue with all news right here on the Morning Express, the Minister in the Presidency, Mr. Jackson Mthembu, the MP, has tested positive for COVID-19. And the Minister took the test earlier on yesterday after showing some symptoms of COVID-19. And as per the COVID-19 regulations, the Minister Mthembu, as well as those who have come in contact with him, will have to immediately self-quarantine. And Minister Mthembu is the fourth member of the executive, including Minister Gwede Mantashe, who has also tested positive in the past week, and he remains in high spirit and wishes all those who are also fighting the coronavirus a speedy recovery. And that is obviously one of the big cases that are happening within South Africa at this point, knowing that most of executive members within Parliament are also testing positive for COVID-19, also showing us that it's not only the elite few that will not be testing positive for COVID-19, and that is also one of the hard ones that we are tracking for you this morning, really giving you all the latest updates in terms of accuracy within the numbers coming in within COVID-19. And also touching on a sadder note, the South African actress Lindiwe Tembeka Ndlovu has passed away. According to a statement released by Ndlovu's family, she passed away at her home on Monday morning. And the family has described her as an unsung, incredible actress who lived a huge space in the creative world of acting. And her longtime agent, Lane Hings of the management, who managed her career and gave her roles, reportedly confirmed on Monday evening that she had died in her sleep in the morning of January the 11th due to health complications, but would not draw into speculations that her death was related to COVID-19. And Lindiwe's career began more than a decade ago when she played the role of Qondi in Manzini.com, an SABC1 drama that was a few years back, and soon after that became known in all homes all over Mzansi when she graced the screen as Malawian maid Busenja on SABC1 Sestopla. And she also landed a range of memorable roles in productions such as Stokvel, Soul City, Scandal, Isdingo, and Home Affairs.
Makhelwane uyamazi kodwa nkosi yami uNkulunkulu wami kanjani nje kodwa ngithi mina Ujama ngithola lana
kumafavu kanje ngidanga abantu sezizindathani ekhaba ufa kuzama ungedla amakhahlama ke ngiphume ngenamnilo ujama ngimesabi uzela uzomjezisa cha.
And her fans mostly recently celebrated her acting skills when she brought the role of Sharon to life on Mzansi Magic's Lockdown, produced by Mandla N. In September last year, she scored a role on Mzansi Magic's isiZulu series Ifalake. And amongst her achievements during her acting career, which included a star performance on Ifalake, amongst many others, Ndlovu received a SAFTA award, which was presented to her by an American actor, Samuel L. Jackson.
The award goes to Lindiwe.
And also take a look at our international stories making headlines this morning. And Joe Biden on Monday received the second dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine on camera as part of an effort by the president's-elect incoming administration to reassure the country of the safety of the vaccines. And according to Biden's transition team, Biden was administered the shot in his left arm by Rick Cumming, the chief nurse executive at the Christians Care Hospital in Delaware.
Still underdressed for my shot right here.
You look great.
Will we sit?
Please.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
Ready. Set, go.
And the president-elect also said he planned to release more details about his plan to combat the coronavirus on Thursday. He is scheduled to meet virtually with advisors on the coronavirus on Monday afternoon. And also Biden and other officials from both parties have received the vaccine in public in order to instill confidence in it and assure Americans that it is both safe and effective. And Vice President Pence was also amongst the first to publicly receive the vaccine.
In the first 100 days?
I do. Let me make a couple brief statements. Number one, my number one priority is getting vaccine in people's arms, like we just did today, as rapidly as we can. And we're working on that program now. I'll be meeting on a Zoom call with my team a little later this afternoon. I put together, which I'll be announcing on Thursday, laying out the plan, the cost of how I want to proceed, the cost of what we have to do to be able to get the entire COVID operation up and running. 3,000 to 4,000 people a day dying is just beyond the pale. It's just wrong, and we can do a lot to change it. Number one, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but we can get it done. And secondly, wearing this mask, socially distancing, and making sure people are washing their hands on a regular basis is critically important. I was appalled when I saw, as a matter of fact, it was the distinguished congresswoman from the state of Delaware was when they showed the folks they were in hiding, in effect, from the mob. She was going around trying to hand out masks for everybody. And Republican colleagues wouldn't take the mask. I think it's irresponsible. And so we all have to make sure it's not a political issue. It's an issue of public safety. And it's going to get worse before it gets better in the meantime. And so I'm confident we can get done what we have to get done. I've been speaking with some of my Republican colleagues about being able to move on a second package sooner than later. But I'll be making further presentation to you all on Thursday of exactly how much I'm looking for.
And also when asked about taking oath of office outside following a violent attack on the U.S. Capitol last week, the president-elect said that he was not afraid on what was happening within America at this point, and he will face it head on.
Sir, are you at all afraid of taking your oath outside, given what happened? Hey guys, thank you. Let's go.
Wait, I can, because I haven't seen these guys in a long time. I'm not afraid of taking the oath outside, and we've been getting briefed, but I think it's critically important that there be a real serious focus on holding those folks who engaged in sedition and threaten people's lives, defaced public property, caused great damage, that they be held accountable. And I think that's a view that is held by the vast majority of Democrats and Republicans in the Congress.
Sir, are you worried that impeachment could potentially delay trying to pass the stimulus bill you're about to propose?
Well, look, my priority is to get first and foremost the stimulus bill passed, and secondly, begin to rebuild the economy in the way that I'll be laying out on Thursday. I had a discussion today with some folks in the House, in the Senate, and the question is whether or not, for example, if the House moves forward, which they obviously are, with the impeachment and send it over to the Senate, whether or not we have to check with can bifurcate this. Can you go half day on dealing with the impeachment and half day getting my people nominated and confirmed in the Senate, as well as moving on the package. So that's my hope and expectation. I don't know. I haven't gotten an answer from the parliamentarian yet.
Great, come on, thank you so much.
And also, House Democrats on Monday released a revised article of impeachment against President Trump. And the process or resolution was drafted in response to the Wednesday Capitol riot. The article, formally introduced on Monday, is based on a draft released one day after the riot. And the resolution charges Trump with inciting violence against the government of the United States by repeatedly issuing false statements about the presidential election, as well as by speaking to the mob before it breached the Capitol.
I support both Representatives Cori Bush and Tom Malinowski in their efforts. I also note that incitement to insurrection is a federal crime. So anyone who incites an insurrection should be investigated and prosecuted. No one is above the law, not the president and not members of Congress. So I hope federal prosecutors and FBI are looking at what some of these Republican members of Congress did to have January 6th happen.
I've talked to some of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle today. I do believe there's an appetite, whether that is censure or some other resolution or opportunity to move forward. And somebody's got to be held accountable, and we have to hold the president accountable for what happened. The rhetoric leading up to this vote, the lies that were told to the American people, this is what happens. Rhetoric has real consequences, and people died.
And Democrats are prepared to vote on the resolution this week. And if it passes, it'll be the second time the House has voted to impeach Trump. And the expectation House Republican will reject a plan to use the 25th Amendment to oust President Trump on Tuesday, in shuttling Democrats and Republicans on the impeachment vote to follow. And the top Republicans who have in the past sided with Donald Trump have called for the Biden to be given 100 days in office before going ahead with the impeachment against Donald Trump.
Hello, my name is Rob Ryan. I am from Georgia. I would identify myself as an independent who left the Republican Party at some point after 2016. I'm posting this to call publicly for the immediate removal of Donald Trump as president because of his actions on January 6th. Other than September 11, 2001, it is the worst day I've ever seen in my life in the history of our country. An assault on our Capitol building by a mob, and what was worse is that the mob was incited and instigated by the President of the United States in the weeks and months before that and in the years leading up to it. And the purpose of the assault was to stop Congress from performing its constitutional duty to count the Electoral College votes and, in effect, to institute a coup against the lawful government of the United States. The fact that the President of the United States did this is of such great, serious importance that I do not believe he can be allowed to remain in office for another day. January 20th is too far away. Too much can happen between now and then. He remains a danger to the people of the United States of America and to our government. And what's even more important is that history is watching us now. Our children, our grandchildren will read that our Capitol building was assaulted. And they will read about what consequences happened because of that, and whether there were any consequences for the man who instigated the assault. And there must be. It must be that when generations from now read about this, that they will read there were severe consequences. For the survival of our democratic republic, this cannot be allowed to stand. And therefore, I strongly urge the Cabinet to invoke the procedures of the 25th Amendment to remove the President, or failing that, the Congress to immediately impeach, convict, and remove the President from office. Thank you very much.
I do have concerns, but so does Speaker Pelosi. Mitch McConnell is a pretty good legislator, and he's doing what he thinks he needs to do to be disruptive of President Biden. But I will say to Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi is smarter than that. We'll take the vote that we should take in the House, and she will make the determination as when is the best time to get that vote and get the managers appointed and move that legislation over to the Senate. It just so happens that if it didn't go over there for 100 days, it could be. Let's give President-elect Biden the 100 days he needs to get his agenda off and running, and maybe we'll send the articles sometimes after that.
And the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, accused the Voice of America News Service of demeaning America in a speech that a watchdog group criticized as political propaganda and violation of the government-funded agency's own rules. And Pompeo delivered remarks in person to a command audience of VOA staff despite the COVID-19 pandemic, urging them to report that this is the greatest nation the world has ever known. And Pompeo did not mention the pandemic and also the institutions of violence that rocked the Capitol last week, leaving 5 dead, or even President Donald Trump's role in encouraging the chaos to also be under discipline. And the speech was also broadcasted live worldwide through the VOA channels in more than 40 languages in what the government the Accountability Projects, a group representing VOA whistleblowers, called a violation of law, rule and policy.
Hey, I read that some VOA polling employees didn't want me to speak here today. I'm sure it was only a handful. They didn't want the voice of American diplomacy to be broadcast on the Voice of America. Think about that for just a moment. Look, we're all part of institutions with duties and responsibilities higher and bigger and more important than any one of us individually. But this kind of censorial instinct is dangerous. It's morally wrong. Indeed, it's against your statutory mandate here at VOA. Censorship, wokeness, political correctness, it all points in one direction: authoritarianism cloaked as moral righteousness. It's similar to what we're seeing at Twitter and Facebook and Apple and on too many university campuses today. It's not who we are. It's not who we are as Americans. And it's not what Voice of America should be. It's time that we simply put wokeism to sleep. And you can lead the way. You all know. That's why you came here. There's a new dawn here at Voice of America. The American public doesn't know this, but when Michael took office, some 1,500...
And also continuing with all our international news, no questions were also allowed with all things happening within the VAO World channels that also did its own director-rated probe reality that followed, giving Pompo a chance to actually do all things with Trump administrations and policy unchecked. And also continuing with all those news, a killer who stabbed 3 men to death in Reading Park has been handed a whole life jail term. And Kahiri also murdered James Furlong, 36 years of age, David Wales, 49, and also 39-year-old Joe Ritchie in June last year in Four Bay Gardens. And London's Old Bailey previously heard the 36-year-old executed the men as an act of religious, in his religious beliefs, and also passing sentence. Judge Mr. Justice Swedin also said it was ruthless and brutal terror attack.
Firstly, we would like to express our gratitude to all those involved in this case. We would like to thank those people who helped in the immediate aftermath of the horrific events in the park last June. Members of the public who tried to help save the lives of those attacked, the paramedics, the ambulance service and the police officers who all assisted at the scene. We would also like to thank the people of Reading, including the LGBT community, for the outpouring of love and support they have shown us and the other families of those involved. David's work colleagues and employer have also been so very kind to us and have spoken so highly of him, shown us the respect they had for him and his work as a friend and colleague. We would like to say a huge thank you to the police who have worked tirelessly to ensure that justice would be done for David, James, Joe and the other 3 victims in this case, along with the prosecution team, in particular Alison Morgan. We will forever be grateful to our family liaison officers, Maggie and Victoria, who have held our hands through this horrific ordeal every step of the way, without whom we couldn't have got through it. For us as a family, it's been devastating to lose our much-loved son, brother and uncle. We know that our lives and the lives of everyone who knew and loved David will never be the same. We love you, David.
And Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has confirmed that she will announce whether tougher restrictions are set to come into force in Scotland amid a warning over essential exercise. And speaking at yesterday's coronavirus briefing, the First Minister cautioned that essential exercise does not include day trips to the beach or the park, as the country faces a really dangerous situation with COVID-19.
Now, we are getting a clearer idea of supply almost, every day that passes right now, but there are going to continue to be uncertainties because of manufacturing schedules and matters like that. But we will continue to vaccinate as quickly as we possibly can and get through the JCVI priority list just as fast as we can. I said last week that we wanted to do the whole of the JCVI list, at least with the first dose of the vaccine, by early May. I would be very, very hopeful that we will be able to accelerate that to an earlier point, assuming we get the supplies to do that. I'll hand over to Gregor on the point about prioritisation, but remember the JCVI list is based on those who are most likely, if they get the virus, to become very ill and die, and it is a priority list that starts with the most vulnerable to that, people over 80, care home residents, and works through the rest of that, those groups. And that whole list, of course, includes everybody over the age of 50 and people with underlying health conditions. And there will be many shop workers included in those priority groups. To say it's impossible for me to talk about Dubai today without making some mention of the situation with Celtic Football Club. Indeed, I would anticipate that I may face questions about this shortly. And I can't tell you how disappointed and frustrated I am to be facing another briefing that may, though this is of course up to journalists, be dominated by football. Football and elite sport more generally enjoys a number of privileges right now that the rest of us.
And well, thank you very much for joining us right here on the Morning Express. It has been an absolute privilege and honor to be in the comfort of your homes, on your phones, at work, wherever that you might be at this point. As I am Mbele signing out. It's a wrap from Morning Express. Thank you very much for being with us from the team that tirelessly works behind the scenes to make sure that everything is put together. Thank you very much and have an amazing day and morning. Make sure that you keep sanitizing, keep social distancing, and wear that mask. It is an amazing day from me, Mbele.